Your blood runs orange and blue. This is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart. Let's get to it, New York.
It's playoff time in New York City. What's up? This is Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by your boy EJ Stewart, and we got an awesome show for you today because we have a very, very special guest to help us get ready for this big series that the Knicks are going to have in just a couple of days against the Atlanta Hawks. We'll have ShwinnyPooh here from the Strickland joining us to talk Knicks ball, talk about the regular season, talk about everything that happened over the course of the season, and to get us ready for playoff time. Really excited to have this conversation with Swinny. He's been, I think, one of the smarter Knicks commentators that we have in our social media space, our digital space. So to have Swinny on is a bit thrilled. So we'll talk about the Hawks. We'll talk about everything that happened to end the regular season. Swinny, thanks for coming on, man. How you feeling?
I feel good. Thanks for having me on. I'm ready to, I guess I'm not ready. I am enjoying the break between end of the regular season. And then the Knicks regular season pretty much ended on Friday. So, a nice full more than a week off before they actually play a game again that matters, which will be on Saturday. So,
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I don't know about you. I feel like it's like that week, the beginning of it, and now you're lucky enough as Knicks fans to have experienced this for a little while. The beginning of it, you're like, oh, it's good to have a break. But then when you get to like Wednesday, Thursday, especially because other teams start playing, you're like, all right, I need to get these Knicks games back on because now I'm watching my Mets just suffer through not being able to score a run right now. So that's been my misery watching on the plane last night. So like, give me some Knicks basketball. I'm ready to go right now. But no, this is gonna be fun, man. I'm really happy to have you on. And let's start with the regular season. And let's start with kind of how things ended. So the Knicks finished this year 53-29. That was enough to secure them the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. This was Mike Brown's first year as Knicks head coach, and this was the big topic of conversation in the offseason because of the decision to fire Tom Thibodeau, and then the to some people, this unorthodox coaching search that landed on Mike Brown being the head coach. Just in watching him in his first regular season, and we'll know a lot about him during this postseason, but were you satisfied with Mike Brown's run as Knicks head coach in his first year?
Yeah, I think I was, had full 82 games. We've kind of seen that, how it all played out. I'm satisfied with what he did. I don't think he did like the greatest coaching job of all time. I don't think that like he was perfect. Obviously nobody's ever actually perfect, but, I think it was good. I think he had his own ups and downs that I think mirrored the teams. And, I think there's you've got to understand when Tom Thibodeau coached his team for 5 years. And whatever you think about Tibbs and my thoughts on Thibodeau are well documented. I think he's a really good coach. I think that he has a limit to how far he can take a team. And I think he reached that limit in New York. And I do think that like his style of coaching can be, I don't want to say tiresome is probably the wrong word, but I think it wears on you.
I think it wears on you for years.
And it's not just Tibbs in general. Like you see this, right? Like coaches, oftentimes it's like hard to have longevity as a coach. Just look around the league, right? Other than Spoelstra and Kerr, like how many coaches have lasted longer than 5 years? It's not like a long list. So, I think he reached his limit in New York, and I think they needed a new voice. I think they needed a way to do things. But also when you have that new voice come in and there's a new way of doing things, I think there's an adjustment period given the kind of institutional knowledge. And the fact that, look, Tibbs obviously was key to building this thing from the ground up when he came in along with Leon Rose. Yeah. So when that guy leaves and a new guy comes in and there's a new way of doing things and he's getting used to the lay of the land that exists, and he's also trying to change how things happen, how the team approaches games, all those type of things, how he manages the locker room. Those are growing pains. And I think we saw that over the course of the year. There was periods of excitement, and then there were periods where you were like, man, this team looks miserable. These guys don't look like they're bought in or more than bought in, but maybe struggling to execute what he wants. Whether that be because they don't necessarily know, or because they're not comfortable, or because they are not happy, whatever the case may be. I think there was a lot of that, especially you saw it with Karl Anthony Towns, who I think what I will always what I've been amazed about this entire year is like there was constantly questions of like, and it would be questions to Cat about like his role, and he'd talk about he would just say like, oh, I'm being asked to adjust, or I have to change, I'm being asked to do different things, and there was never, not once, a follow up question of like, how are things different? What
Right.
is different? So
Exactly.
I don't know how we got I don't know how we got to a full season without that question being
Yeah.
asked. Um, but I do think that he had to make an adjustment in terms of just like what's being asked of him. Um, he has a lot more responsibilities beyond just like look to score, drive and attack. I think he's being used now more as like a playmaking hub for other guys to get opportunities.
Yeah.
All that is true. His defensive role changed. We were not playing drop all the time, which I think benefited him. Not playing drop all the time. The numbers bear it out. He probably had his best defensive season in God knows how long, at least since 2021-22. So there was a lot. There was a lot to adjust to. And I think even with like Brunson, you saw at the start of the year, it was like, oh my God, this is great. He's off the ball all the time. He's moving and he's getting all these easy shots. But then there were periods of the season where it was like, man, can Brunson get off the ball? And I think there's always that push and pull between, your star player, what you're asking of them, what he's comfortable doing, and how those things all meet. But I think the way the season ended, the games against Atlanta, Boston, Toronto, those were really nice wins for the Knicks. I think you saw what the vision of like what Mike Brown is trying to achieve is, and I think you saw the players buying into it and executing it. And in particular, that starting five, which I still have a lot of questions about,
Sure.
but it's undeniable that those three games, especially the Boston and Atlanta games, those five guys who have deservedly been criticized a lot for their performance together, they brought those games home in crunch time, and they executed at a high level offensively in a way that, it wasn't just Brunson having a heater or Karl Anthony Towns going off for 45 points. It was five guys working in concert and executing, in tight games, in tight situations.
They also got big stops too. It wasn't even just also offense.
Yeah, got big stops. And like, again, I didn't think like the Knicks were a broken team after last year. I did not think that I thought a coaching change was warranted. I was actually surprised they did it, because getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, I thought, and beating Boston the way they did, I felt like that was definitely enough to keep Tibbs for Tibbs to keep his job. I give the front office a lot of kudos for having the balls to make that change, because it was not an easy change. They came in for a lot of criticism. And yeah, like, did I think everything needed to be torn up and revolutionize the way everything happens? No. But what you really wanted to see was more layers to everything, more layers offensively, a willingness to experiment with lineups and rotations, more tactical flexibility defensively. And I think you saw those things, and I think the results, if you kind of step back and just look at them, I think they speak to like, yeah, we didn't change everything, but we have made marginal gains here in the places you want to see. The defense is improved. The offense was slightly better. Their net rating is better. Like all these, and they're not drastically better, but a point here, 2 points there, like those things add up. And I know that the playoffs in a lot of ways, until at least game one of the Eastern Conference Finals last year, was very fun. But like, I think people are forgetting how miserable in a lot of ways the 2024-25 season was, how the entire season became about how they could not beat Boston, could not beat Cleveland, could not beat OKC, and a lot of those games, most of those games, really got embarrassed. And it was not a fun season, and nobody was optimistic going into the playoffs. Nobody was even optimistic going into the playoffs against the Pistons. And then obviously we'll see what happens this year, but I feel a lot more confident about this team in terms of I think they have a better understanding of what they are, who they are. I think they're closer to their ceiling, and they have I think they've developed more options and more ways to go about attacking games, closing games out. So I just feel better about where the team is. So, if I were to give Mike Brown like a letter grade or something, I'd probably say like a B plus feels fair. I don't think it was like some bang up job where everything was perfect, but if you told me this is where the team is heading into the postseason, I would have been like, Yeah, I think that's fine. Like if that's what you're telling me, that they're peaking maybe at the right time, which it feels like maybe that's the case, then yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think I'd probably land around a B as well. I think the thing that I've been fascinated by is this concept that, like, just like other teams are not maybe necessarily showing their cards, have the Knicks not necessarily been showing all their cards? Because we landed on a playoff rotation that I think if you asked me before the season this was going to be a playoff rotation, I would have said yeah, I could see that. But just given kind of like how the season went, and you know we bring in Alvarado, you bring in, Diawara comes in and he becomes a fixture for a little while, and then we land on essentially the same guys. It almost, when I look at this regular season in its totality, I almost look at it in a different lens now because I'm like, I don't know if the Knicks were playing the game that maybe the Pistons were playing, for example, where I think winning 60 plus games and getting number one seed was definitely the goal. I don't know if that was the goal for the Knicks. Do you believe in that being a possibility? And if that was the case, do you think that was a mistake?
Um, well, I think a few things happened. Like at this, I found the entire narrative to start the season before the season of like, do I think the Knicks have the pressure to get to the finals? And do I think right or wrong? Like, I mean, actually, I think it's right. I think it's fine for that pressure to exist for them,
Yeah,
given you fired the coach after he got to Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I'm fine with that pressure existing. But the conversation of like, there's going to be a cakewalk to the number one seed and everything is going to be easy because the East is garbage. Like, I didn't really buy into any of that. I actually thought the Knicks would. I thought they would get off to a worse start than they did. Quite
mm,
honestly, I thought it would be a big adjustment because the stuff Mike Brown wants to do, where like guys are moving and like there's a lot more movement and
yeah.
all that type of thing.
The whole famously
It's
not
so
running
different,
plays for a while.
right? And it's so different from the way Tibbs went about it. So I just thought it would be a big adjustment period for them. And obviously, we saw that adjustment period happen over the course of the season. But do I? I don't. I feel like in some ways I've talked about this before, but for Detroit, I think like there is a simplicity to the way they play that I think benefits them. I'm not saying that as a knock. Like
Right.
they have one guy who can like create a shot consistently. I mean, I know Dennis Jenkins he had a nice stretch with Cade out, and so maybe they have two now. But like for most of the season, it was like, okay, Cade's gonna do all of the like half court shot creation stuff. Jalen Duren will be running a lot of pick and rolls with him. We can run some offense through Duren when Cade is out, and everybody else just like defends really hard and like cuts off the ball and attacks the
Yeah.
glass. And it's simple for them. It's simple, and they deserve credit for like all their guys buying into that simplicity. Um, and I think that's a little bit easier for young teams, and it's especially easier when maybe guys aren't up yet to get paid. Um,
Sure.
so like they have that benefit. Like I don't know that the Knicks. I wouldn't say that Mike Brown was like, I don't care about the one seed. Like none of this matters. I don't think that's the approach he took,
Hmm.
but I definitely do buy that. One, I think the team itself, like they're older guys. They're all in their prime now. They've been through all of them now, right? Have been through multiple playoff seasons, extended seasons. You know, obviously we went to the conference finals last year. Karl Anthony Towns he's been to back-to-back conference finals in different conferences. Mikal Bridges has played in the finals. OG Anunoby was on a championship team. He didn't play in that playoffs, obviously, but he was on a
Hmm.
championship team, and he's had extended playoff runs with Toronto prior. So, like, these are all experienced players. I mean, even the guys that we think of, like, as kids on the team, right? Deuce McBride, Mitchell Robinson,
Yeah.
these guys have been here now for a long time, and they have a lot of playoff experience. They've been through this stuff. So, I think there's a malaise for them that set in a few times during the regular season. And I especially think the cup was like a good early season, like this is like a carrot, right? Like, oh, like we're building up to the cup. We're trying to win the
Yeah.
cup. And you win the cup and it's really, really awesome and it's fun and it's exciting. And you beat the Spurs in this like pretty cool game. And then 2 days later, it's like, oh, well, we're playing in Indianapolis
Indiana.
against the Pacers. We're thinking like
Yeah.
there's no time to emotionally enjoy and recover. And I think there was a malaise that set in after that. You can kind of like look at the numbers and they'll show it to you. We all know about the 2-9 stretch that they went on. Um, and then I think towards the end of the season, there was a bit of a stretch where it was like you do the West Coast trip. At the end, you're like they're in LA for like 3 days. I think they probably had a good time in LA.
Yeah.
And then you play a bunch of tanking teams for like 2 weeks in a row. It's a long season. And so I think Mike Brown he knows who he's coaching. This is not some young impressionable team that needs like somebody to like drive them constantly to, like they kind of know how to manage themselves, and I think you have to treat them as such. People can get annoyed by that. I don't blame fans for getting annoyed by that because it certainly is annoying in real time when you're witnessing, like, you're like, come on, like, why are you down 15 to the Warriors playing nobody right now? Like, give me a break. But I don't think the Knicks didn't care about the regular season, but I didn't feel like they valued, like, oh my God, if we don't get the 1 seed, this is a horrible thing. I mean, and just look at, like, if you just look at this, right? So last year, minutes per game, Josh Hart 37.6,
Yep.
Mikal Bridges 37, OG Anunoby 36.6, Brunson 35.4, Karl Anthony Towns 35. This year, Brunson had the highest minutes per game at 35, and OG's at 33.2, Mikal Bridges 32.8, Karl Anthony Towns at 31, Josh Hart at 30.2. Even like Deuce McBride, he started last year 10 games. This year he started 15 games. He played 26.3 minutes per game this year. Last year he was at 24.9. So even he got a little uptick in minutes. Mitchell Robinson obviously played more minutes this year because he didn't miss 6 months or whatever the hell it was with an injury. But like, you look at that, and again, like, I think it's not about we don't value the regular season, but understanding like we don't need these guys. We're gonna win 50 plus games probably in any reasonable season with reasonable health. This team is gonna win 50 plus games. We need to make sure that they're peaking at the right time. We want to keep them as fresh as we possibly can. And we do want to try different things. Like to the point you made about Diawara, he's probably not going to, and I'm fine with him not playing much, by the way. I think it's kind of wild to see people freaking out about this. He's a 51st pick who had a nice, promising rookie season, who's hit a little bit of a wall, I think, in the last month or so. But he played 634 minutes this year. That's actually like a pretty significant amount for a player drafted where he was.
Yeah.
And you just saw more experimentation, more willingness to try things. And part of that is going to result like more, even if it's just like, hey, we're going to change around who the 9th and 10th and 11th guys are on various nights, various stretches. So with that, like, yeah, maybe you lose some games that you shouldn't have lost. Maybe, you miss a couple of wins here or there. But, is there really a massive difference between the 3rd seed and the 2nd seed, between the 1st seed and the 3rd seed? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know how significant home court advantage is because the Knicks have won with home court and they've lost with home court. They've won without home court. They've lost without home court. Like, all these things are just kind of, they are what they are. And it's actually what's pretty funny is all 4 of their losses in the playoffs under Thibodeau were with home court advantage.
Yep.
So, like, home court is valuable. I'm not dismissing that entirely, but is it the end all be all? I don't believe so. And quite honestly, like, I think the history of recent NBA basketball shows that, like, it's beneficial, but it's not the ultimate thing. I mean, the Pacers maybe they do win a championship last year without having home court in the last 3 rounds of the playoffs if Halliburton doesn't tear his Achilles. So I think where they are, how they approach the season is fine. In real time, was it annoying for us? Of course it was annoying for us at various points. But at the end of the day, we are where we are. And I think they have, I'm not going to sit here and pretend because they won the NBA Cup, the season is a success. But, like, that is not like a bullshit achievement in the sense of, what would have happened if you could tell leading up to the Cup final what was going to happen if the Spurs won that, right? It was going to be like, oh my God,
this coronation.
Here they
the
are.
Next team, exactly.
Yeah, and they beat OKC, and then they beat this Knicks team. Like, what an achievement! And I'm not gonna say it's like the greatest achievement ever, but I think it was a nice win, right? It was a good win against a Spurs team that now we're seeing is like very strong. They have a couple of nice scalps on their schedule this year versus last year where you were like, so you just beat everybody you're supposed to beat and then lost to the teams that like are kind of your measuring stick. Obviously in the playoffs we see how much that didn't matter apparently, but it's been a good season and a frustrating one at times. And I think some of that frustration is just because of the way things were set up, in terms of like the Knicks cakewalk to the 1 seed, the Eastern Conference is terrible. And now we're saying like, actually the Eastern Conference is still pretty good. And and it wasn't a cakewalk because young teams develop in different ways. And Detroit, to the point you made, they deserve a lot of credit for the way they approach the season and the way that they took it was a competitive series last year against the Knicks in the first round. Um, and they took some lessons from that. I think they used that for motivation. And they attacked the season in a way that is a credit to them more than anything. But I'm happy with where the Knicks are, and I think it's fine how the season played out, if not perfect and ideal.
ShwinnyPooh from the Strickland joins us here on Orange and Blue Bloods. Yeah, no, I feel like the regular season kind of was what it was. Like at a certain point, and I've said this on a couple of shows I did on The Fan, and then I've done Orange and Blue Bloods, and I've actually, I was with Texas Henry on New York Post last week too, and I said at this point, I think you weren't going to learn anything new, I felt like, really from this Knicks team. I figured that out later in the game. Like, like most Knicks fans, you're crashing out after every game, or you're celebrating every game like it's the biggest game ever because that's just the way New York is, the way Knicks fans are. But as I kind of got through the season, I realized I don't think there's really anything I'm going to learn about the team, at least anything positive. Maybe I can maybe go crazy over the smallest things and make that maybe a molehill out of a mountain or whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
But typically I was like, I don't know if you're gonna learn much. You're either gonna learn about their style of play, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish offensively, what are their principles defensively. But in terms of this random night against the Pistons on a Thursday in January, what does this mean? I don't think you're gonna learn anything. I think it's gonna be like we saw last season when they played in the playoffs and they got these teams. That's where you learned. And one thing you mentioned that I really keep bringing up to people as well is people keep kind of acting as if this Knicks team isn't a battle tested team, and not battle tested in the sense that they they're like the Cavs, for example, where they've lost a lot of really bad series they should have won, or the Bucks in recent years, obviously beside the championship. The Knicks have had tough series that they've won. They've had great playoff moments. And I think some of the, you mentioned a lot of pessimism last year, which is a little more understandable. The pessimism this year, I think, I don't quite understand as much, only outside the exception of, James Dolan saying that this is a championship bust team and that this is, and that fans really taking credence to that. And a lot of people taking credence to that. I don't really understand the pessimism. I feel like this is a team that we've seen them beat a really good Boston Celtics team last year. We saw them get tested against a Pistons team that we now know from this season is legit. It's a really good team. I think there are aspects of the team that they're still missing from last year. I think not having Malik Beasley, I think it's the fact they've done this without him actually is been really very impressive to me. So I look at this Knicks team and I don't think they get enough credit for how battle tested they are. Do you feel that same way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of what you're talking about is what Mike Breen, I think, touched upon, which people got mad about, where he was like, look at how far the team has come under Leon Rose. And people took that as oh, you want to just be satisfied with 50 plus wins and winning a round or two and that's it. And it's ridiculous that he had to go on. I think he did a show a couple days after.
He's like Michael K, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And he had to be look, that's not what I was saying. And he kind of expressly said it in the initial statement where he was like, obviously the goal is to win a championship.
Right.
I don't think, and this is not just about Knicks fans. This is not just about NBA fans. This is sports now across the board where it feels like it's oh, if you don't win the championship, then you shouldn't be happy about anything. And I just don't understand that because look, last year losing the Eastern Conference Finals the way they did, especially obviously that game one, it's very frustrating. It hurts. It sucks. And it sucked losing to Miami in 2023. It sucked seeing the entire team kind of fall apart during the Pacers series in 2024, and you lose that one too. All those things suck. But you know what else is cool? It's pretty cool to beat the Cavs in 2023, and after the entire Donovan Mitchell saga the year before, that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to win this first round seesaw battle with the Sixers in 2024. It was cool to beat the Pistons in what was basically a war, and then upset the Celtics. And look, I know Jason Tatum gets hurt, but Knicks are gonna go up 3-1 in that series before he gets hurt. They had all the is it possible they lost anyway? Sure, but it's also very, very possible they won because they were up 3-1. So what are we talking about? And it was a great. They had 3 20-point comebacks in the playoffs last year. 2 in Boston to open a series. Like, these are great memories to have, and like, it's okay to celebrate those things, and celebrate them without being like, well, now I don't need a championship. Like, of course, we all
Right.
want to see
Yeah.
the Knicks win a championship, but like, one, I don't know how if I'm a fan and I'm just sitting here being like nothing matters other than a championship, does that matter to the team? Like, I don't think they're
Right.
sitting around like, oh man, like I hope that like Schwinn and EJ are like demanding that we win a championship. Otherwise, like we're not
Right.
being held accountable or something. Like, accountability is not coming from the fans at this point. The accountability has to come from themselves. It has to come from the organization. It has to
Right.
come from the front office and ownership. And obviously, that seems to be there. If that wasn't there, they wouldn't have fired Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Like,
Tibbs
it would
would
have
be
been
here.
very yeah, it would have been the easiest thing in the entire world last year to just be like, well, sucks we lost the Eastern Conference Finals, but Tibbs has been here all the way through, and now we've gotten as far as we've gotten, since the first time since 2000. Like, he deserves a chance to run it back, and they would have been under this team itself. There would still be pressure to win a championship, but it wouldn't have been this fervor all season every time they lost a game of like, oh, like they lose 3 in a row early in the season, and it was like, oh my god, why did they fire
This
Tibbs?
could have
Like,
never
this
happened
team
under
has
Tom
no
Thibodeau.
yeah, like they
It's
don't
like
have any
crazy things. Yeah.
identity. Yeah, they don't have an identity. They lack toughness. All these things are. It's like I don't think like Tibbs. Sure, he's a tough guy. Like, you're like, I'm sorry, like Jalen Brunson was what, the 36th pick in the draft, 34th pick in the draft. Like, he's had to make his career and become what he is without the kind of like organizational support that you get if you're a top 5, top 10 pick or something. He's had
Absolutely.
to fight and claw for this. Mitchell Robinson was a 36th pick overall who came into a dysfunctional Knicks franchise and beyond all odds has managed to like be here now. This is his 8th season and have a highly successful career where he has been decisive for the Knicks
Yep.
in multiple playoff victories. Josh Hart was a late first round pick. Whatever. We can go on and on down the
Yeah.
line here,
Exactly.
but like, this is not a team that's just like Deuce McBride, a second round pick. Like, this is not a team of a bunch of like lotto guys. Like, there's
Yep.
2 guys on this team that are drafted in the lottery. One of them is Karl Anthony Towns, as we know, who wasn't even drafted here, right?
Right.
And the other is Mikal Bridges, who also wasn't drafted here. And like, these guys are tough. Maybe they're not overtly tough. Maybe in the way that like the '90s Knicks are. I
Yeah.
know
They're not intimidating. Like they're not an
Yeah,
intimidating group. That doesn't necessarily mean you lack toughness.
yeah, and it's like, like if you're expecting the '90s Knicks to roll out here, like nobody in the league is like that. Like, I know people will be like, "Oh, the Pistons," like it's like, dude, nobody's fighting anymore. Like, Isaiah Stewart threw a punch one time. Like, give me a break. But like, they're tough in I think they've proven their toughness. To me, they've proven their toughness. This is a team that has not just won playoff series, but in those playoff series had to overcome massive moments that went against them where they blew games. Like that Philly series, they blew game 5 when they had no business losing it. And then they had to go back and they win the game on the road in game 6. Like last year against Detroit, like you had a chance to close out game 5 or the series in game 5 at home. You blow that. And by the way, last year they started off the playoffs. They won their first 5 games on the road. Like, you don't do that if you're lack mental toughness. They've had a 20-point comeback. Yeah, that Pacers series sucked. They had a 20-point comeback against the Pacers where they were looking straight down the barrel of we're down 3-0. And like, obviously, as we all know, no team in NBA history has come back from a 3-0 deficit. So like, this is a team that is tough in its own way. I think they have a mental toughness about them at the very least. And then even if you talk about physical toughness, like it's very hard for me to buy that like Josh Hart is not physically tough or Mitchell Robinson is not physically tough or Jalen Brunson or whatever. Like, again, like you said, they're not the most intimidating team ever or anything like that, but they're good and they're tough in their own way. And that toughness was not tied to any specific coach. It's not like Tom Thibodeau imbued them with toughness, and the moment he's left walked out the building, that like no longer were they tough.
Yeah.
That's just a ridiculous. It's honestly, it was disrespectful to the players in a lot of way. And I always felt like for all the credit Tom Thibodeau deserved, I always just felt like the conversation around the team while he was here felt like it was like as if he was, like singularly lifting all these players to heights that were like beyond them. And I just never really bought that because I mean, again, it's just like a kind of a slap in the face to the players and the talent that
Yeah.
they have. Like Mikal Bridges made a finals before he ever got to New York. Karl Anthony Towns he had more success probably after Tom Thibodeau left Minnesota
Yeah.
than he did when Tom Thibodeau was there. And we can go down the line. I don't feel like you need to because I don't even like to really shit on Tibbs in the sense of like, I think it was time for a change. I think everybody should look back on his time in New York as like, maybe you think he deserved, and I argued for him to get fired at various points prior to when he actually did. But like, it's very hard to look back at his time in New York and be like, he set the organization back or he
Yeah.
didn't benefit the organization in terms of like helping push us to where we are. But yeah, that whole conversation around like the toughness of the team or the identity of the team or like their lack of identity, I guess, it's just a very weird thing that I never understood.
ShwinnyPooh from the Strickland joining us here on Orange and Blue Blood. So let's get to this playoff matchups here. So we got the Hawks. They play the Knicks, obviously, game one. I said Sunday there. It was actually Saturday. Saturday at 6 p.m. In terms of this series, and the way I think about this, what is the one thing about the Hawks that concerns you the most? Because I think I know what mine is, but I'm curious what yours is.
Um, the thing that concerns me the most of the Hawks, I mean, just based on the games we've played against them, I'm a little bit concerned about the rebounding battle. And I'm concerned about it because I think if the Knicks draw even in the possession battle, I think they will win this series. And I don't think it will be, I don't want to say it'll be like they'll destroy them, but it's very hard for me to construct a path for Atlanta to win a series if you're basically drawing even on possessions. Because I think the Knicks have better shot makers. I think they have more offensive talent.
Yeah.
And that will benefit them. So that and the Knicks have struggled. They did not do a good job of keeping Atlanta off the offensive glass in the last game that they played. They also didn't do a good job of it in the game at the Garden, or sorry, at the game that they lost. I don't think they did a good job of it in any of the matchups. I'll have to go back and look at the numbers here, but
Yeah.
it's been an issue. It was an issue for them when we played the Hornets late in the season, and it was also an issue against the Celtics in the game right after Atlanta. I think these teams that have like guards and wings that are very active on the glass, they can be problematic for the Knicks. So that's one that's like, I know that's like a very arbitrary thing that
Sure.
I don't think anybody probably would key in on as like the biggest thing I'm worried about, but it is like the biggest thing I'm worried about because I respect the Hawks' talent. They've had a great season relative to like what I think anybody really thought of them. But I'm sorry, like I think Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns should beat Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Johnson. And like maybe that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but I just feel very strongly about that. Like if you control the possessions and those are pretty relatively even, or if you win the possession battle, I mean, if things win the possession battle, I don't think there's a path for Atlanta to win the series. I really don't. So I think that's how important winning the possession battle is. So rebounding, turnovers, those are the very specific areas I'm watching.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point because I think, especially the last game they just played, the Knicks won. The Hawks, in terms of Knicks turning the ball over, which that's what kind of was going to get to, was the Knicks and will they take care of the basketball. Typically, they're pretty good at it, but like the way the Hawks and the way they defend Brunson reminds me a little bit of what I see from the Pacers and the problems that they have at times given Brunson, long, quick, athletic guys, blitzing screens. And I think it's going to be imperative that he makes good decisions with the ball. It's going to be imperative that Cat and Hart, I think, make good decisions with the basketball. Because, I thought for the great win it was and how well the shot making was. Like, to me, to be honest, the way you're describing that, like, that game was a microcosm of, I think, how the series will probably go. In that the Hawks will create possessions because of their rebounding ability, which is something that is going to be different for the Knicks. Knicks typically are the team that hurts people in the offensive glass. And the Hawks are disruptive defensively. Will needs to be able to take care of the ball is my big thing, and I'm kind of looking at, because to me it's like if they, with the last game, they turned the ball over way too much, they gave way too many rebounds, but at the end, and then Jalen Brunson struggled for 3 quarters, and it was like, well, the fourth quarter Jalen Brunson magic, and that was the end of the game. That's kind of how the game ended, and I think that's kind of how the series is going to go. But I think that is probably my concern: is will the Knicks be able to take care of the basketball enough to not give the Hawks those extra possessions? Because that's where I think, to your point, that's where the series for the Hawks becomes live if they're able to get extra possessions, turn the Knicks over, and force Jalen Brunson into some difficult offense, which. Have you bought this idea that Brunson? I know that you see everything on social media. Like, not that John Brunson is washed, but that like there's concern about like his offensive efficiency kind of taking a dip here. I'm not as concerned about it, but it is something that was obviously prevalent in that game. People were kind of really highlighting it prior to his explosion in the fourth quarter. Is that something that you're concerned about at all?
I would say that I was concerned about it a bit. I think when I stopped being concerned about it was much before this. I know exactly what you're talking about. That Hawks game, it was like, for 3 quarters, you had these, and I don't understand, like, there seems to be this group of, like, Knicks fans who, like, are thrilled about, like, the concept that, like, Jalen Brunson potentially could be declining, and it's like, please get a grip, like, Jesus. But... like, genuinely, you're not just not a Knicks fan at that point. Like, you're rooting for your own random agenda of, like, being right over the Knicks being good, which is not fandom. That's just being a jackass. But, like, if, I think the games where I kind of stopped being concerned about, and I do think, like, he sprained his ankle against the Kings.
Yeah.
And I do think that he was maybe nursing it, maybe not pushing it to the full max that he can. To manage it through the course of the season. But, like, you saw, it's kind of funny because they did go on this 3-game losing streak, but he had a really awesome close to the Pelicans game right before that 3-game losing streak. And I know the Pelicans closed the season terribly. They were actually playing pretty well then. And when they have their full cast, and they did have their full cast that game, they have some good long defenders that they can throw at him, especially Herb Jones. And he gave Herb Jones work in that fourth quarter, and, like, that was nice to see. That Hornets game that they lost, if you go back and watch it, like, Brunson's the only reason they were in that game, in that first half. Like, he was really, really dynamite. And then you watch the OKC game right after that, and, like, he was great in that game. He outplayed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
They didn't lose that game because Brunson lost his matchup. They lost that game because, honestly, straight up, the officiating was terrible.
Yeah, right. It was a rough referee in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't usually, like, think games boil down to that. I think that game pretty much just boiled down to that. But, like, you saw those games, and I'm like, yeah, I think he's fine. I think he, like, I was concerned for a bit. I think he's fine. And I think, but what I do feel was happening is I think he did slump for a while. I think he was trying to get himself out of a rhythm, or get himself into rhythm, I should say. And because he was trying to, like, hunt for his shot, get himself going, I think there was a lot of weirdness with that resulted in other guys being frozen out to an extent, not feeling as involved. Very specifically, that Karl Anthony Towns in that Rockets game, I think he was justifiably very upset at halftime of that. And if you remember, they came out of halftime and it was like post touch for Cat. Like, they just ran plays for him. So I think that was something happened at halftime of that game. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah.
I don't know who said what. But really, since that point in time, they've been better, and Brunson's been better. Like, the way he closed this season, those are 3 of the best, like, floor games you're going to see from Brunson. They're 3 of the best he's had all year, where it was like, you mentioned the Hawks game, and that was the night of the national championship for college, and I'm a Michigan fan, so I was like, I'm going to watch this. Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I have, like, a superstition where, like, if I don't catch a Knicks game from the start, I will just, like, not pay attention to it until it's over, and then I'll check the score. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I know I'm going to switch over in, like, this third quarter here or something, so, like, I'm just not even going to watch this game, and I'll watch it later. So I watched it the next day, and, like, I knew that I know what Brunson's line was, and I saw people, like, all the social media things. I got to say, like, when I watched the game, and maybe it's, like, because they're going to win it. Obviously, by the time I watch, I know they're going to win. I kind of watched that first 3 quarters, and I was like, look, it's very annoying that he's missing some of the shots he's missing, but this feels very different from, like, the games where he is hunting for his shot and he can't make it happen. And like he was still distributing the ball well. He was still getting guys involved. And that to me was a big reason they won that game is that even though Brunson himself didn't get going until the fourth quarter, that he was letting, Karl Anthony Towns get going. He's allowing Mikal Bridges to get some shots up. And like he's bringing those guys along with him rather than kind of trying to drag them, right? It's like making them involved versus like just trying to put them on your shoulders and carry them over the finish line. Like there's a difference there. And I think the way he played that Hawks game, the way he played that Celtics game, those two games very specifically, I think I needed that as a fan, but like he needed that. I think he needed that to remember like, oh yeah, I play with like really good players and I can trust them even if there are times where like Towns is going to be frustrating and Bridges is going to be passive and whatever. Like in fact, it's on me to trust them in those moments maybe more than any other time to get the most out of them because they're not going to win a championship with Brunson. Like we saw with the limits of it the last couple of years, like you can't ask, I don't think you can ask anybody really, but you can't ask Jalen Brunson to just be like, hey, please be Michael Jordan for 4 rounds. Like that's just not a realistic.
He can do it for maybe 2, but
and you assembled this team so that he doesn't have to do that stuff. Right, so exactly. Like it's and that's I know Mike Brown has gotten a lot of criticism I think for the Cat stuff. With like, oh, he's not getting enough touches, like why are his numbers down, whatever. And that's fair. I think he deserves some of that too. But I think some of that is like a reflection on Jalen Brunson and like his struggles at times to manage the complete ask of him, right? Because you're not asking him just to be your leading scorer. He's also your best playmaker. And that can be a difficult balance to strike, especially while you're also adjusting to like a new lay of the land in terms of how you're setting up offensively, the system, the style of play, all those things. And, I hope that what I believe is that like, I think they kind of turned a corner here at the end of the season. Because if they did, and like that is the new norm, I think they're going to have a good postseason.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think to me with Brunson is he's got to show me a playoff series where he looks washed before I say he's washed. Like he's earned way too much rope at this point in time for me to be super concerned. I thought there were some weird parts of the season where his efficiency wasn't great. But I think one thing about the Hawks game, and it's very apropos that this team they're playing, that I gave Mike Brown a lot of credit for. And maybe it was Brunson. I don't know. Maybe those guys in the huddle. But like they started that fourth quarter rough, and a lot of it was Brunson. And he didn't take a shot. But he was just pounding the ball. And sometimes he gets into that mode where he's trying to find the perfect play and the perfect time to then get the opposite motion. It just takes him too long. And they started getting into a lot more dribble handoff and a lot more, rub actions with him and Cat. And that actually freed him up from these long defenders. And I thought that was something that showed some growth because I think we've seen those playoff games or some big games where it's like does feel like Brunson's got to just pound it until he finds a shot or finds a guy open. Where I think maybe with Tibbs, maybe hate to do that, but maybe with Tibbs they would have just let Brunson try to figure it out, and it seemed like that was either Cat or Brown helping him figure it out, and they ended up having a great game to finish. When you think about this matchup with the Hawks, is there any matchup you're keeping an eye on particularly? Like to me, I think about Cat versus Oneka. To me, Cat pulverized him in the third quarter, and that feels like a matchup that he should destroy. Now, defensively, Cat's got to get out to the 3-ball with him because he can shoot the ball a little bit. But to me, like when I think of like where the Knicks can really exploit this team, I think that Okongwu is he's not strong enough. I think Cat should be able to have his way driving the basket, posting up. And what we saw, and I'm curious how they're going to cover it, they didn't put a small on Josh Hart for most of the game. I'm curious if they'll switch that up. But if they do actually decide to go with a natural big on Cat, and I think it's going to be a Okongwu for most of the time, I feel like that's a matchup that he's got to really dominate, and he should. Is there any matchup that you look at and you say, okay, this is one I'm really following for this series?
I mean, I think you're right. The Cat one is this is a good series for him. They just don't have anybody big enough to handle Cat. That one's big. I think I think in general the front court matchup needs to be a big plus for the Knicks. Cat, obviously they don't have anybody for him. They don't have anybody for Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson's a gigantic human being who like just gobbles up rebounds for fun. Like it's yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest one. I mean, what I am interested in is I think I saw I want to say it was Mensa from Knicks Film School. He posted something about how like basically it was like the idea of the reason they can't put their center on Hart is because they want to hide CJ McCollum on Hart and they can't hide him anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I'm curious to see is will they risk at some point maybe trying to hide CJ McCollum on Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby instead?
Yeah.
And how the Knicks go about attacking that because Bridges can get in his post up bag and like when he's actually feeling good, I don't mind that shot for him, especially if he has a height advantage.
Yeah.
Even though he's a little bit weak, let's say, about backing his guy down and getting into optimal shots. OG, I just don't like as a post up option in general because he has absolutely no like feel with his back to the basket. So how would the Knicks go about attacking that? I think that's a interesting wrinkle that they will maybe have to sort out. But like, you know, it's pretty funny because if you go back and like watch, I haven't watched. I'm gonna go back probably today and tomorrow and watch these 3 games from the season between the teams. But like, what stands out to me is like the game they lost, the Knicks lost, was just like it was such a bad effort and such a weak effort from their wings. Like I specifically remember a play where like OG got bodied by Rizashay. And I'm like, what is even going on here? Like you got like 40 pounds on this guy. Like, and he's like, you know, I mean, I don't want to dump on him, but he's like one of the worst first overall picks in recent memory. And it's like, what happened? I don't know what happened in that game. I don't know what even was going on with that team. It's also important to remember in that game, the Knicks didn't have Mitch Robinson. They didn't have Karl Anthony Towns. They didn't have either of their centers in that game. And I think that was obvious. I mean, I think it was obviously a major reason behind the loss and their struggles in that throughout the course of the game. But yeah, I mean, I think you nailed the nail on the head. The biggest one for me is Towns because when he has played in these games against Atlanta, he's had great games. I mean, the first game this year, he had 36-15. He had 36 and 15. He went 8 of 15 from the field, 17 of 18 from the free throw line in the first one. So his best, you know, that's probably his favorite game of the entire season because I guarantee that's the most free throws he's taken.
Yeah.
And then last week he had 21 and 12 if I remember correctly. Yeah, 21 and 12 and 6. So like he has had monster games against them. I think they don't have a good matchup for him, and they also don't have a good matchup for Mitchell Robinson. So like I guess maybe if anything, I would extend what you said and just say like the centers for the Knicks, like if they do what they should do, I think you know that gives the Knicks the advantage that they need to win this series.
Yeah, when it comes to a prediction on this, I'm leaning. I want to be confident and say Knicks in 5. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say Knicks in 5. I saw the ESPN list came out today and. Only I think only Ramona Shelburne had the Knicks in 5. Everyone else had Knicks in 6. A few had Knicks in 7. And I posted it on social media. I said, if they take some 7 games to beat this series, the Knicks are cooked. There is no NBA Finals appearance. And I really don't mean that as disrespect to the Hawks. I've been very impressed with how they played the second half. I've really been impressed with their front office group and how they knew exactly what they needed to get for Trae Young, given the low value he had, to get the team to play their highest potential, and the trade was amazing. It was a great trade for them. But I still just look at, like we said, the front court matchup. I think you made a good point about the lack of shot creation really on the team overall. I don't think that this is a team that I have the Knicks getting to the finals, and we'll talk about that maybe to wrap the show. But like, if you're a team that is capable of getting to the NBA championship, I don't think this is a team that you battle 7 games with. So I'm curious, what do you have in terms of a prediction for this series?
Yeah, I'll go Knicks in 5 also. I don't think it'll be an easy 5 games.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I think Atlanta will be competitive. I think they have some interesting pieces to challenge the Knicks. I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker is. I mean, like he's had an amazing year. The last month has been crazy for him, and he's probably the. I mean, not he is the he's the signing of the season. But like, I mean, I just go back to that game and I watch it, and I'm like, I feel like if you play that game 100 times, the Knicks will probably win by double digits multiple, like a lot of those times because some of the shots he was hitting, I'm like,
crazy.
They're not. This is not bad defense. This is not anything other than just like incredible, insane shot making. I don't know how sustainable that is over a 7-game series. I don't think it is. Like, and I don't even think it would be sustainable for like a Steph Curry level shooter to hit some of the shots he was hitting. You know, like he had that one fading in the corner, like sprinting full speed in the corner, and he hits it right over Josh Hart, who's right in his face with his hand up. Like, you know, those are not good shots to be living off of. And quite frankly, he does not have the resume as a playoff scorer for me to just pencil him in as like, oh, this is what he's going to do exactly what he does.
Yeah.
CJ McCollum has been a playoff dropper in his career. Jalen Johnson, I don't know if you watched their game against the Cavs right after they played us. He had probably the worst game of his season. He looked really bad. I didn't think he played well against us either. I really didn't think he played well in that game. He had 5 turnovers to 5 assists. Like he did not have a particularly good game there either. I think you're seeing some of the limitations that he has as a player when you can get him into the half court. It's not a big deal because he's whatever he is, 23, 24 years old. He's still developing. This is his first kind of like season as the man. So if he has flaws, it's not a big deal. But like, to me, this does feel a little bit like that 2020, 2021 Knicks-Hawks series, except with the roles reversed where the Knicks are more talented. They have more pieces across the board. And Atlanta has had a nice season. They've had a good season. I don't think they're here as like it's not because the Eastern Conference is terrible or whatever. Yeah. They took this spot. They earned it. But they maxed out after the All-Star break to like get this spot. Like they've been on a marathon sprint to get this done. And it reminds me a lot of that Knicks team where it was like they needed every game to get to where they got. And they didn't have another gear when it came to the postseason. And like you saw some of the limitations of like the players that helped them get to that. Like Randall obviously had a terrible series. And you can go on down. Really, aside from like Derrick Rose and Obi Toppin for a game, like everybody was horrible in that series. And the Hawks are more talented than that Knicks team was, but they are not as talented as this Knicks team, and they're not as battle tested as this Knicks team as far as at least like maintaining your offensive kind of efficiency into the playoffs. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker last year was really, really bad from the field in the postseason.
Yes, he was.
And it's, you know, maybe that changes. Maybe he has a confidence now that he didn't have. But like one thing we know is that regular season is not the playoffs. You know, you're giving a team, not only are they preparing for you, like the Knicks are preparing for them for a week, you're going to get familiar playing a guy game after game after game after game, and the Knicks have bodies they can throw at him. You know, they can throw OG Anunoby at him. They can throw Mikal Bridges at him. They can throw Josh Hart at him. Josh Hart has had a fantastic defensive season. And he was, I thought he did, like, again, Alexander Walker made some great shots, but I thought Josh was right there in his grill plenty of times. And he ripped him late in that game. He ripped the ball from him late in the game as a big play. So I'll go Knicks in 5. I like where this team is. I feel like they're in a really good place mentally. And I think not only are you getting guys peaking at the right time individually, but like we talked about, it feels like there's cohesion now, and these guys are coming together, and hopefully they're helping elevate each other's play.
I really like the comparison to 21 Knicks with this Hawks team, because everything about Nickeil Alexander-Walker's season, him coming into this game, this series, feels like Randall in 2021. And if you remember, Randall pulverized the Hawks in that regular season too.
Oh yeah.
So the expectation was that Randall was going to have this huge series because he pulverized the Hawks all season. But playoff basketball comes with different pressure, different whatever. And we know the issues Randall had when it came to the playoffs. And I don't know what's going to happen with Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Obviously, he's a different human. He very well could be this to be his time to shine. But I just know because I've lived this experience with a guy who you sign kind of on the scrap heap and he turns into a star. And then you think, well, he's killed the team in the regular season. In the playoffs, he's going to be great. And then it just doesn't happen. Playoffs is a whole different beast here. Last thing, Schwinn, before I get you out of here, man, this has been phenomenal. Really, thank you so much for joining the show here, Orange and Blue Bloods. When it talks about a postseason successful run, I know you said that you can understand fans and people feeling like this finals are bust. But in your eyes, what is a successful postseason run, and where do you have the Knicks finish in this postseason?
I think a successful postseason run is a finals appearance for this team. Okay. I don't have any issue holding them to that standard. I think anything short of that, I mean, we can discuss degree of failure, but I think it would and should be deemed a failure. And I don't think there's any, to me, maybe I'm wrong, because this front office has been a lot more prudent and patient, and they've not kind of been crazy in how they approach things the way past Knicks front offices have been. But it feels like this is very much a put up or shut up moment for this current core of the team as it's constructed. And by the core of the team, I really mean that starting five ultimately is kind of like what I'm talking about. So, maybe I think there will be consequences if they don't at least make the finals. And yeah, I expect them to make the finals. I do. I feel good about this team. I think you can make a pretty reasonable argument that the Knicks have the best player left in the field in the Eastern Conference on their roster. I think you can argue that Karl Anthony Towns is the best big man in the conference left in the field anyway, because Giannis obviously is not in the field.
Right, yeah.
I think you have those pieces. You have these wings that you have. I mean, the Knicks have painstakingly assembled this Josh Hart and OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, and they gave up a lot to get these guys, but they got them. And I like their depth pieces. Fine. I love Mitchell Robinson. I love Deuce McBride. I think Landry Shamit's been a good, solid player for them. And I think with those 8 guys, and we'll see what Clarkson gives you. I'm not that optimistic that playoff Clarkson is going to be great, although he does have a pretty decent playoff resume. It's pretty interesting to think about.
He's the guy that I'll be honest, anybody in the rotation right now, he's the guy that scares me. I just don't think he's just played well. And I know he's kind of changed his role, and I appreciate the defensive efforts and the hustle because it has made him playable. But the shot making just never showed up this season. And I don't know if it's just, again, he's a 33-year-old guy where playoffs come, all right, now I'm ready to play, and this is what he's been waiting for. I'm hoping that's what's happening. He's the guy that makes me, as much as Alvarado was struggling, I'm I don't know if I'm taking him out of rotation for that. But anyway, sorry to cut you off there. I had to get off a thing on Clark.
No.
He is scaring me right now.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I love the way he's attack. I think he's playing really hard, and he deserves credit for fighting back to get his spot. But I don't feel great about that. That said, with those 8 guys, and the fact that I do think Mike Brown would be willing to take a chance on a guy like Alvarado or Diawara or even Sohan maybe in very specific moments. And sometimes you need that type of inspiration. But those 8 guys, I think you can deploy them in enough versatile ways that you have enough. Now, obviously, health is always going to be a key there, and health is always a swing factor. If Jalen Brunson turns his ankle, has a high ankle sprain in game 1 of the Hawks series, at that point, I'll probably be well, if we can just get out of this series, I'll probably just take that for the season. I don't know what the hell you're going to do at that. There's nothing to be done there.
Yeah.
But if health is okay for these Knicks, then I think they should go to the finals. And I'll tell you this, if they go to the finals and they're playing anybody other than OKC, I pretty much like their chances.
I agree.
Because I think they're a bad matchup for San Antonio. And Denver, Nikola Jokic is an all-time great player, but the Knicks have given them work for 3 years now. So I think we're a bad matchup for them. So I would like those matchups for the Knicks. So we'll see how the West shakes out. But I think finals appearance is a fair expectation and demand at this point for this team, given kind of the coaching change, all the resources put into this roster to assemble it over the years. you want to see it culminate this season in a finals appearance.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I also agree that I think that if they don't see the Thunder in the finals, I think they have a good shot. I think the Spurs, they show the athleticism that maybe would worry you, but the lack of experience I think would be a problem. And those other teams, I think the reason why they dominate the Nuggets is when the Knicks face teams that don't overwhelm them athletically, they typically win. So I think even if someone is good as the Nuggets or some of these other teams, I think that they end up, they're typically, they have too much depth to beat those teams. So it's going to be a fun playoffs. ShwinnyPooh, let people know where they can watch you and they can find you.
Yeah, you can find, I'm a host of Pod Strickland. So if you go over to the Strickland, you can find that. Pod Strickland, you just search it up. You'll find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So check that out. We have a lot of other stuff on there too, articles, and there's other podcasts as well. So we have Patreon if you want to subscribe to that. So check it all out. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
This is awesome, man. Thank you guys so much for listening. Those watching on YouTube, thank you guys for watching us on YouTube. Again, if you're watching, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Of course, if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Just search Orange and Blue Bloods wherever you get your podcast. Hit the subscribe button. Of course, if you can, give us 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys again so much for checking us out. For Shwinny, I'm EJ. We'll see you a little bit later.